Great, thank you, Joe. Let me quickly share my screen right there, and hopefully you are looking at the WebFOCUS Hub page, right? So before getting into the designer and talk about why you should consider looking at designer rather than looking at App Studio, let me just quickly talk about the concept of the hub. So hub is basically the fusion of everything that the users have been looking at on the home page, or on the administrative perspective, or from the workspace perspective. So when I land in here, I look at these 5 different tabs on the left-hand side, right? So this is basically my whole the hub, right? So as I land in, I'm looking at the personalized view just for me. So I'm looking at something that I have worked on, something that's shared with me, what my workspace has, what are some of the favorite items. I can also go and look at some of the extended workspaces that I have access to. So I can come here and I can pick and choose my domain. I can start creating the content here. I can also go back into the WebFOCUS server, look at what application folders do I have access to, look at what adapted connections can I create, what master files are there. I can do magic around the master files, like creating data flows and everything. I can look at all the portals that I have access to, and I can also look at everything that's related to either client administration or related to the server administration. So client administration, we talk about, okay, you want to change some of the properties of how you're accessing the default settings within the within your WebFOCUS environment. How do you import the CM packages or export the CM packages, or you have securities, or you want to create some users and manage those users from the server administration point of view, connecting to your LDAP or managing your resources. So everything related to the client administration and the server administration is now available to you in the hub. And of course, based on what user is accessing it, they will see the relevant tabs only. So as an admin, I would see maybe just 1 tab. As a user, I might see 2 tabs or more tabs here. Now, from right here, I can go into this plus sign here, and I can create visualization, or I can assemble visualization, start creating like a page and start dragging and dropping my content there. I can also create data flows. So when I go into my visualization, I pick up my default or whatever data source that I'm using, and I go into designer. Now, a lot of you probably has already seen the designer page, right? So what I'm going to do is just quickly create a chart. So I'm going to have gross profit by product category. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about in terms of comparing it to App Studio is about drill downs, right? And Joe mentioned about the drill anywhere capability. So this is really focused on that drill anywhere capability. So when I want to create drill downs in App Studio, I have to select that parameter. I have to go and specifically mention what report I'm going to drill down to. There was auto drill as well. So let's say if I want to drill into hierarchy from country to state to city, that's auto drill. But from city, let's say if I want to drill into a completely different hierarchy, right? It becomes very difficult. I have to go back to the IT team and say, hey, can you create a new business view for me? And they would say, oh, no, just work with what you have, or it's going to take some more time for me to do that. So we have simplified that process. So what you can do right here in Designer, I can come here and say, okay, just click on drill anywhere. And what's going to happen is that if I pick any of these bars, I can drill down to really any field that's available to me, any dimension that's available to me. So from the product category, I'm drilling down to year, right? I picked 2020, let's say, and I'm drilling down to month. So again, that's a hierarchy from year to month. But let's just say now I want to drill down to a completely different hierarchy. So I'm going to go to let's say a brand, right? I don't have to go back and rearrange my fields into the business view. Everything is right here for me. And I can also look at the navigation bar on the top and tells me where I am in the navigation, right? So let me close this. Let's get back here. Now, from here, let's go back to the report mode, right? And I think a lot of the App Studio customers that I talk to, they are primarily more focused on creating that pixel perfect reports, or complex reports, or very nicely designed reports, right? So we'll see how we can do some of those things here in the designer, right? So let me just throw one more field in the report, right? So it actually looks like a report. And now I'm going to add a column total. Of course, if I want to do row totals, I can do row totals as well. And the first thing probably that I want to do is look at, okay, how do I do a conditional formatting here, right? So I can go to my field, say, let's do some conditional styling. And it's going to pick up the profit. And I say, okay, wherever the profit is less than a certain field or a value, I'm just going to randomly type a value, just make it a bold and highlight it with a red color. Now I can add more conditions if I want to, or I can add more conditions, more drill downs to the conditions. And once I'm done, I'm going to apply, and that conditional styling shows right here, right? So that's about conditional styling. Let's talk about formatting, right? So one way to format the report is that I just take the whole report and I say, I want to turn the whole report into, I want different background. I want, each row to have different symmetric colors. For example, here I can say, okay, I want to have a report like this, like old style reports, right? Or maybe I want to pick up the title and values, and I want to specify really what color do I want in the title, right? So I'm going to go to my columns, and I will say, I'm going to pick up this title of this report, and I'm going to change the styling for it. Just let's put a background on this, make it center align, right? Now I can do that not just for the title, I can also do that for the values. If I want to pick up the values, I can do it the same way. I can also do that for the totals. So if I have any row totals or column totals, I can say, okay, let's style it the same way as we have the heading, right? As we have the title on the top, and it's going to be very much aligned to how we have. So a lot of things that you do in App Studio around how to do conditional styling, how to format your report, make it like pixel perfect report, that's all available in the designer now, right? So now let's talk about filtering. Right? And before we go to the filtering, now talking about pixel perfect. Now, if I want to run this, now I remember back in App Studio, and I did a lot of work in App Studio. Back in App Studio, if I have to run a report, if I have to see how it looks like into a PDF format, I have to run it every time. If it's Chrome, it might be a little faster. If I'm using IE, it might take some time for me to actually load it. So we have removed that. And now what you can do in Designer, you can just come here and say, okay, let's look at how it looks like in the PDF format. And that's your paginated canvas functionality that Joe was talking about. Now you can look at it from the PDF point of view, from the PowerPoint, from Excel. So every time you do an Excel, it's not going to download another file for you. You can just look at it right here, right? So that's paginated canvas. Now let's talk about filters. I think filters are a very, very important aspect of a report. So we have three different kinds of filters, right? So one of the filters is I just drag and drop my product category, subcategory, and let's say if I'm picking brand from a completely different hierarchy. So these are value-based filters. So I can go and say, okay, I want to pick 4 of these values and see how that reflects on my report. The second type of filter is static filter. So I'll say, okay, this is a year, and I want to pick and choose my values. So I'm going to select from the data the last 4 years or the last 5 years. And that becomes a static. So static filters will not be shown to the user. It will just automatically be applied. Now, what if I want to give more options to the user saying, hey, these are the value filters, but there are more filter fields. They're more parameterized fields, just like info apps. They're more parameterized fields, and you can pick and choose which of the fields do you want. How do we do that in Designer? So we have add parameter field list. And I'm going to just name it dimensions. Now I can choose what type of fields do I want in my parameter. Do I want measures? Do I want dimensions? Or do I want to put those across columns? So I'm going to put the rows or dimensions and do a multi-select. And I'm just going to throw some values in there. So I have product category, product subcategory. Let's do a brand, and let's throw is one more brand type. Right. So now when I run this report, first of all, the first thing you'll notice is the auto prompt. In App Studio or in the previous version, the auto prompt was all on the left-hand side. And now we have more aligned it to how it is in the Designer. So now I can pick and choose my values, of course, if I want to, my category, subcategory, or the brand. And then I pick and choose what fields do I want to look at. Right? And that's going to show my report. And of course, we have drill anywhere enabled. So you can drill from one field to any other dimension field. Right. So this was about the filters. Now we can save this. We can put this into a report caster, burst it out to the user, or we can put this onto an assembly page. So going back to the hub, I can say just put this into an assembly mode. So I'm going to select the blank template. Right, going to my workspace, and I have a very similar report. So I'm going to bring up that report right here. And it's very similar to what we created. Just have product category and just one more dimension. Now, before I start talking about it, let's just look at when we created a parameterized report, how we used to do that in App Studio. So, and I did that a lot of times. So I remember exactly how it was done. I have to go and create a report. Then I have to parameterize each of those fields. And then I have to convert that into a specific format and then put that into a HTML canvas. And then I have to define specifically for each field, how is that going to react in the HTML canvas, and then make it sort of pixel perfect, define the controls for each of those fields. It was very, very manual task. There were a lot of interfaces that I have to deal with. And when I created an App Studio, when I created a info app sort of application in the Designer, it was quite fast, very fast, right? So this is the aspect where I'm getting to, okay, I want to take that report that I created, that one report that has all the parameters in place, and I'm putting that in the page, just like I'm putting that in the HTML canvas. Well, there was one, but I can bring in more reports here. Instead of one report, I can bring in 4 or 5 different reports, and I can style it the way that I want. I can brand it the way really that I want, right? So first of all, when I drop this in, the first thing that comes here is the filter. So we have 3 filters. We have product category, subcategory, and brand. Well, if you remember, the product category and subcategory were in the same hierarchy, and the brand was not in the same hierarchy. And the dimensions, we had 3 or 4 parameterized field in the dimensions. So what if I add the filter right now? So if I add the filter as is, and I pick up just one, let's say televisions category, it's chained with the product subcategory. So it's going to reflect in subcategory. But if I go to brand, I would see all the brands. So how would I take this brand and chain it to the product subcategory? So all I have to do is take this brand and drag and drop into the subcategory. And if I go back to the brand, there you go. It's automatically chained. Right? That's how easy it is to do chaining here. The second thing is, let's say if I'm including more content. So let me bring in brand analysis. Let me bring in product analysis. bringing uh, multiple frames on my page. And when I realize, oh, I need to put all of them into a tab. All I have to do is select some of them and then say, let's put them into a tab format. Oh, maybe I did wrong. Maybe I want to put that into an accordion format or a carousel format. It's quite easy to do so, right? So that's about how we can combine these different widgets that we have on the page, or we can separate it out, segregate out them automatically in just one click, right? Now, another point is the control types. So one of the control type that we have, the two more controls type that we added in the designer is, one of them is double list. So now I can say, let's bring in some of them here, and I can sort it out so that the computers goes on the top, and then I need accessories, and then the list goes on. And that is going to reflect on my report, right? And the other one is the toggle. So toggle is important when you want to say, okay, I'm going to give the users the choice whether they want to look at the members, whether they want to look at, who are the registered customers or not, or you want to give them two options, look at the report from the month versus the year. So in those kind of situations, toggle is a very, very, very interactive control from the usability perspective, right? So once we have all this, we create these reports, parameterize them, put them on your page. Now let's look at some of the things that we used to do in App Studio, like how we used to create it. And I'm going to look at one of the report that I've already created here. Something like this, something like an info app. And again, this is probably not a very, very best example of how it looks like in your environment, but it's very similar, right? So here I have my filter fields. I'm going to look at, okay, North America. I'm in the Midwest, so I'm going to choose Midwest. And I want to include some more fields: cost of goods, profit, quantity sold. Let's bring some more dimensions, subregion, store name, store type. So I have the option to filter the data. I have the options to include more fields. Now, once I have this, if you remember, this is in Analytics Anywhere format, or we call it active report format. So I can really export out the data that I have right now, or I can say, based on this data, I'm going to create a new report now in multiple options that I have for the chart. And I can just say, okay, I need something that has a revenue by store name, right? So that's one example of info app, how easily you can create it in Designer and bring it onto a page. The second is something like this. Now, I remember this because I used to create a lot of these examples in App Studio, and I can tell you it takes a lot of time for me. But in Designer, it becomes very easy, because with that one parameterized or parameter field list box that I added, now I have the options to change the horizontal axis to the vertical axis, the detail, what do I want to provide to the user, or the colors, sizing, anything that's available to you as one of the parameter of the chart or the report that's available to you for the change. So if we have a map, you can give the options to have country in the map, or the city or the zip code in the single map in the form of a info app or an application, without providing multiple different maps on the page. So a very, very easy to use feature, and something that can be very easily created as well. So talking about, what are the top 3 things that I think that comes as part of the Designer, that why we should move from App Studio to the Designer. First of all is the user experience. It's very easy, very modern looking interface, very easy to use, right? And the second is the time to analytics. A lot of features where you had to go in multiple places in App Studio and define each and every component of the field or the data source, that's all automated. The time to analytics is very, very low when you started using the Designer. And the third thing is we talk about the modern features. Again, Joe talked about some of the features that is in Designer, and I showed you some of these features, right? But there are much more in the Designer, and we are looking forward to more as well, right? So that was a quick demonstration of some of the features of designer, WebFOCUS Designer. And that's it. Back to you, Tim.